To join me have this conversation, I have Sonic and Dlamini, Executive Director Kwakha Indvodza, joining us from Eswatini. Sonic Dlamini leads one of the few organizations on the continent that is dedicated to mentoring boys, and today he will help us ask the vital questions. Are we doing enough for the other side of equality? Sonic, thank you so much for joining us. Sonic, can you confirm you can hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Okay, so let's dive right in. Why do you think that the struggles of young men in Africa are often invisible in, before we even talk about the bigger things like policy and media, let's talk about, in the society, we just see young men as though they're born to know what to do. Why is that?
I think there's an imbalance in the narrative on the boy child, first and foremost because of the fact that African societies are patriarchal in nature, and issues around toxic masculinity, where the boy is always taught to be tough, not to cry, and not to show any signs of weakness. So we are always then seeing these challenges where, again, if you look at even the community programming is actually skewed towards supporting the girl child, leaving another most important puzzle, the boy child. So chances are, if you don't give them and empower them pretty early, then what are we expecting for future generations of a lot of men and future leaders in society?
Okay, and who would you say has the responsibility to make the men more aware that they're humans and they have responsibilities, but at the same time, they're empathetic towards their needs?
I think really it's everyone's. Parents, it starts with both parents raising their child, because before the child is exposed to the real world, it starts in the house, where already issues of desegregated duties in the household means that the boy is doing that and the girl is doing as separate things. And therefore, really, that those assumed privileges, or there's that false belief that all boys are naturally advantaged. And so, again, it gives us this false narrative where now boys are now suffering in silence, and society, as has been the case, they're saying it rewards boys for being strong and punishing them for showing vulnerability. It starts within the family. Both the mother and the father should play a meaningful role in raising a child. And then the community, as we have the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. That's an African proverb. It really requires that our communities, they have meaningful engagement of the boy child pretty early, from the time they start engaging with the wider society and community to the time they go to school, higher education institutions, and then to the world of work. We really need society to start bringing fair playing ground for both genders. The child who's a boy needs to be put alongside the child who is a girl, and giving them a good starting pretty on, and strong rules on issues of transformational gender norms, and looking at how best the boys, their needs are met, their challenges in society, and also aligning how the girls have been empowered to actually fight for their own needs, and they tackle the challenges they face as they grow up.
Now, some people feel, and this is where it's tricky, because the bias is that some people feel talking about boys takes away from the girl child's progress and vice versa. How would you respond to that?
It is not either or. The fact that we are supporting girls requires that we have to neglect the boys. It is not true that supporting the boy child takes away from the girls. In fact, it is empowering and improving on the welfare of the girl child. For a long time, society has empowered women, again, leaving the boy child behind. Now we're expecting an empowered girl to be able to live at par with a disempowered young man. And these women, they're supposed to find their colleagues, workmates, their husbands, and fathers who can raise future citizens. So we really need to actually ensure that we support them equally, and ensuring that empowered boys are able to support girls. Remember, a hurting soul hurts others. If a child, like a boy, has been left behind, they are hurting in a sense. Therefore, we want them to be well-rounded so that they are less aggressive and not promiscuous to using violent means to dealing and treating and engaging with the girl child and women in particular. We want gender equality to be equal, and gender equality means equality to everyone, not just one single group.
So what would you say are some real consequences of leaving boys out of development, socially, emotionally, or economically?
You would see in our society challenges around school dropouts for the boys, because they are strong, they are tough, and therefore there are very few people and organizations are investing in the education of the boy child. So the boy child is already taught to start fighting for his own place in society. You see a lot of challenges in families, a lot of high rates of divorce, lots of mental health issues like suicide. You see a lot of anger and isolation leading to crime and serious extremism among the boys. There is also higher rates of substance abuse and emotional distress. And then they're also unprepared for adulthood. And many a times they have to face with the consequences of raising their own boy child children. And so they really don't know what it is to be a man, because no one has groomed them to be the man of tomorrow, as we call it in Kwakha Indvodza's community engagement. We want men who can play a meaningful role alongside their mothers, who are transformed in their views, whose norms and values are supportive and resilient enough to be ensuring that women are protected, and they're also challenging those who are perpetrating violence towards women.
So, I've also heard people say things like, when you see someone who grew up without a father figure, you would know. What role does being without a father, maybe losing a father at a young age or having a poor male role model, play in shaping these outcomes?
I think fatherlessness fuels confusion. So boys without strong male guidance and strong positive role models struggle to form their own identity. That's the first and foremost a role a father plays. He plays the role of, being so many other issues, migratory work that forces someone to move to a new location where they cannot be with their children, wars, civil strife, and resources to start where they can be to support their families. We really have started, not just in the but across the world and Africa, all over. You can see that father's absence has significant problems which affect many boys, and that Africa is already struggling a lot of other challenges that perhaps Europe and North America are not seeing as much. So we are seeing a lot of other challenges, so including someone losing a father through diseases, through acts of crime, through wars, and through self-inflicted harm. One society that is groomed by a loving mother who treats their children with love, dignity, and respect, a present father who can cement the values of love, dignity, and respect.
So your work with Kwakha Indvodza focuses on positive masculinity. What does positive masculinity actually look like in real life, in a world where we talk a lot about toxicity in masculinity?
Positive masculinity means a changed mindset of society. And let me clarify, masculinity not only is it just about men, even the behavior of women is actually a sign of toxic masculinity. The expectation and the pressures placed upon men, these are some of the elements that are showing us that there is toxic masculinity. In positive masculinity, we want men who lead with care, not control, and boys who express feelings without fear, stigma, and discrimination. And we also want males who protect their own spaces, but also the spaces of women without using force and or violence, coercion, and many other acts that have no place in our time, if I to put it like this. So fathers who are present and not just providers, because a lot of the time African fathers, as much as they try to contribute, they have no time to play or engage with their children. If they say, I've provided clothes, the basics, food, and school fees, that's it. But there is no strong bond with the children they have. So we need leaders who build communities, not over dominance, but over influence and positive influence and inspiration. We need fathers who frown upon all forms of violence. We need fathers who do not exploit women, and fathers who see women as equal partners, and fathers who also afford, in political terms, roles to women in parliament, in other societies. I think you will notice that in Africa, for instance, we have what we call chiefdoms and small kingdoms, where a lot of the times the roles and certain roles are segregated and played by men, and women are left behind. We want a society where we ensure that everyone is given equal opportunity.
So I think that we've had a conversation around this, but what are the main reasons why you think till now in the 21st century it's still so hard for African men, that's boys who have grown to become men, to express emotions or to seek help?
Patriarchy and notions of masculinity means a man must always man up. We have the man up culture where from a young age, boys are told that crying or sharing pain is weak. There's also the fear of shame or mockery, especially from among peers and other groups, where a man who shows signs of weakness and emotions is really frowned upon and lampooned, if I to put it like that. And we have in our culture and society no vocabulary for showing emotions. So boys are not taught how to name or handle their feelings in the first place. So the only way is to use violent means. There are no safe spaces for men to come and feel not pressurized and feel less stigmatized and feel welcome. They often have no one to trust and to open up to. So those are some of the challenges why still the African boy and men really have have a hard time expressing their emotions and seeking help. Seeking help is always a sign of weakness in our society. We need to start drilling down through media, through education system, through our community program and engagement, through preachings in church, that it is okay to be weak. It is okay to be emotional as a young person. and it is okay to go through, a certain moments in life where you feel helpless.
All right, so would you say that schools are doing enough to catch early warning signs among boys? And if they're not, what would you say can be done about it?
First and foremost, we need to acknowledge that schools and the education system in its entirety is a breeding ground for incubating think tanks, thoughts, and social leaders of the future. Primary schools up to the level of tertiary, technical and vocational education centers, and professional education systems where norms for gender equality are practiced and modeled, and where voices and ideas of women are valued and raised up. We can use the education system as powerful tools for accelerating progress towards equality and empowerment for all. For now, unfortunately, schools have often missed the signs, and many boys act out or shut down because they've got nowhere else, no guidance, and they always face discipline over support. Troubled boys are often punished corporally and are often ostracized and not helped or given the help they need. Help that helps, if I to put it like that. And more mentors and counselors are not found in schools. We need to have a lot of male mentors and counselors as part of the education system. Early interventions must be built into education and not just left to chance. So one of the things that we have noted is the fact that evidence has shown that gender equality issues impact and are reflected in the higher education systems in many African countries, which show unequal access to higher education, performance, technical and vocational education, social education, and professional development for the most vulnerable members of society. So there are very few resources and opportunities available for people to assist people to actually start seeing the early signs in education. We need to improve social protection in schools, starting as early childhood care and development.
Dlamini, thank you so much for joining us and discussing the necessity of also prioritizing the young boys and men, especially on the African continent, so that we can have a balance across both genders. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we can't have the rest of the conversation. I would have loved to ask more questions, but because of our time, we'll have to end it here. But thank you so much. Sonic Dlamini, the Executive Director of Kwakha Indvodza, joining us from Eswatini. Thank you for your time.
Have a lovely day. Thank you.
All right, you're still live with us on Fafana.